This is Robert with Pioneer Smokehouses, and today we're going to do two large pork shoulders in the Cuisinart COS-330 30-inch electric smoker. Now that's a lot for this smoker, so we want to make sure that we prep it and get it going as soon as possible. Now this is not expected to be done until tomorrow, but I want to get the temperatures that I want in a reasonable amount of time, so that way I can put it into a low holding temperature right before bedtime. Now, let's go ahead and first take a look at this. The first shoulder is going to have to go up here, and the second one's going to have to go down there, which is not going to leave any room for a drip tray, which I'd really like to use because I don't want the oil all over the place. Now, if oil drips down and comes out through the pan, that's fine, but I would rather direct it into one location. So I might consider poking a small hole in the tray if it gets to be too much. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take this tray out, and then I'm just going to set it right here and take a look at it. What I have here is I have some paper twist ties. Don't use the plastic ones because they'll melt in there and it'll mess up your food. You don't want to smell that. So now I'm just going to leave that right there for a second. And then I'm going to go ahead and twist this one on. Just like that. Now that should be good enough to hold it the way we want, and then we just go ahead and reinsert that. Doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be stable, so that way we can put a sheet of tinfoil on there to catch all those drippings. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to use the PID today. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert the temp probe, kind of run it back through here. And then I'm just going to drop it right in here. Go down and then up, and then it should stay in place. And you could twist tie that in there also. It's going to be a little tight in here because those are big, and we don't want the end of that probe to touch anything. Otherwise, it'll affect the reading. So get it right in there. Just like that. And if I can't get it to stay when I load it, then I'll go ahead and wire it in with the twist tie. If you don't have twist ties, any form of baling wire would work just fine. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the PID. Now down here, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on full blast on the controller on the Cuisinart. So its controller will be on the max setting, and it'll kick out when it triggers its own thermometer. Okay, so you push the button down and that blinks, and then we can go here. And now we can control that one. So it's set at 355, but that's not our temperature today. We want to go to 275. Go sideways. And set. So now it's set at 275. Current temperature inside the smoker is 74 degrees. And that red light right there means that the power is on. And then I check up here and the red light is on up here. So we are getting power to the element. Now I'm going to go ahead and let that preheat while I do the pork shoulder. So I'll be right back with all that stuff. So I brought everything out, and here we have the two pork shoulder blade roasts Boston butt. So basically it's a pork shoulder. Now I brought out two different knives, and normally I would only use this as a slicing, but because of the shape of these and I want to trim all the fat off, I thought that I'd give this a try. Normally I would use the curved boning knife to trim the fat, but I want to get a little bit flatter trim, so that's why I'm going to use the slicing knife today. Then as for the pan, normally I just use the pan and throw it right in there, but normally I only use one seasoning. Since I'm using two, I wanted to get this rack up here to keep from setting the second one down in the spices from the first one. And then I have the PS Notorious PIG rub right here. And I'll show you a close-up of that. I wanted to give this a try. They're a sponsor of our local booster club, and so I wanted to make sure that I gave it a shot and see how it goes. Now this is my homemade pork rub, and you'll find a recipe in the link to the article below for pork dry rubs. But this right here is what I typically use. The brown sugar will clump up a little bit, so before you go to use it, cap tight and shake it real good and break up as much of that brown sugar as you can. And just like that. Ah, that smells really good. Then I have 2 grill mats, and we'll throw those in right before we throw in the pork. I'm going to go ahead and open the larger one of the 2, so I'll be right back. So I've got it open. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little look and make sure there's no surprises that I didn't see when it was in the package. Everything looks relatively normal. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this side that does not have the cap on it, and I'm going to take this little slice right off of here to get rid of a good portion of the fat that is on this side. Not going to get rid of all the fat. It's not possible. There's going to be fat running in there, and besides, that will actually help with the moisture on the inside. Set that off to the side. A little bit right there. If you're having trouble trimming your fat, throw it in the freezer for about 20 minutes and the fat will start to freeze, and the meat, of course, too. Then it'll make it easier for you to trim that off. Now I'm going to start here. To get halfway through, I'm going to take a stop. Move my hand. And look at that nice piece I took off of there. That worked out perfectly. Now I can size it up and trim that out. And again, you're not going to get all the fat off, but what we want is to get a large portion of it off. Also, that will increase the surface area where we get seasonings directly onto the meat. And really, that's where you're going to have the best experience. Let's take this corner off, and I think this one will be done. That looks like it to me. Now I'm going to go with the larger one with the PS seasoning. And keep in mind that there's a lot of different ways to deal with this. You can wrap this in saran wrap, or you can put a glove on it. But I go with the wash it afterwards method. So when I'm done with the containers, I always take them and wash them up. Sometimes I'll take a large amount of this and pour it into another container so I can shake it up. And that's really good for just about any seasoning because there is some settling. Now I'm going to go ahead and just shake this out on there. Don't be shy, get some on there. After you get a good layer on there, you want to press it in. Sometimes if you wait a few minutes, that'll be good because it'll tack up. The seasoning is going to draw liquid out of the meat almost immediately, making it moist. You could use a binder. I typically only use a little bit of olive oil on the surface to make sure that it is tacky and wet enough for what I'm doing. But almost instantly, moisture is being drawn out of that meat. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip it very carefully. I don't want to waste a bunch of the seasoning. See, a little bit of it will fall off. Okay, and then we'll repeat. So now I've done all the sides, and now we're going to re-examine the top and bottom. A little pat in there, rub it, flip it over, do it again. So I don't know if you can see in there, but we've got about half that jar left. So one of these butts took about half a jar. Little spot right there where I missed. And then again, I will take this in the house and I will wash it in hot water. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this to the side. I have a plate right here that'll fit it just perfectly. And then I'm going to go ahead and open the other one. I'll be right back. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and load these. Now, I've done a little bit of testing, and it turns out that the bottom shelf is actually slightly warmer, but I think that has a little bit to do with the heat rising up from the element. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Then we'll slide this out. Set that right there. And we're going to put the larger one on the bottom. That's the last chance to inspect it and decide if you want to put a little bit more of the seasoning on there or if you knocked any off, but I think it looks pretty good to me. So go ahead and just push that in there. And then we'll put this one in here. I do kind of like that grill mat up there because it pushes the thermal probe down just a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and same thing here, carefully to not knock off any seasoning and set it right there, as close to the middle as possible. We're going to go back just a little bit further. Now, if we need to slide it around on the rack itself, we can use the grill mat to do that. We don't have to actually touch the pork butt. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a tray and put that underneath there, but you don't need to watch that. I'm just going to take and fold the tray so it fits right in there and make sure that there's a larger fold on the back than there is in the front, because if any of the oil drips out, I would like it to drip out down here and then it can roll straight into the hole there. I don't want it dripping out on the back, and plus I won't be able to see what's going on back there, so make it higher in the back than in the front. Let's go ahead and close this and we'll take a little break. We're at 180. We should be back in about 20 minutes for me, but that'll only be 1 second for you. So it's been about 20 minutes and I was ready to put the tray in. Then I forgot that I didn't load the wood chips. Now today, because it's pork, we're going to use a combination. I want to go with some fine wood chips in the very bottom. So what I have is the Cameron's apple. If I had pecan, I would use it. but I don't currently have any of that. As my base, I'm using the Weber wood chips, which are a little bit larger than my standard wood chip, which is the Smokehouse Products wood chip. And I prefer that one, but this one's more like their wood chunk. So I'll show you a couple pieces of that here. And they're larger pieces, but they're just fine. With a little bit of the fine wood chips at the bottom, that'll get the smoking process started. Now, when I'm loading a hot smoker like this, typically I would take and put the pan full of wood chips in from outside. But because the pan is already in there, I'll be going ahead and using a metal object, and I just happen to have a pellet smoker tube sitting right next to the camera. So I grabbed that and I filled that up. And this is going to work great because I'll be able to just pour it in there. Any small tin can will work fine. A tomato sauce can, green beans, something like that. Anything that's going to be heat resistant. So let's go ahead and open that up so you can get a look over my shoulder here. I'm going to take this, see if I can get that out of there since I don't have my hot gloves with me. Dump that right on there. I put some of it in there. See if I can pull that out just a little more. And then we're going to pour about half of that in there. And just a little more. And then dump the rest of that in there. And that's all of what I loaded in there. And I think we need just a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and just pour that in. Oop, dropped a couple. Not going to be perfect, but it's certainly better than nothing. Don't want to put it directly under the element because it could combust. And then right back in. Now, this is the tray that I made, and we'll see if it fits. It's going to be really tight. Okay, just going to have to curve that just a little bit to get it in there. First thing, I want you to note that you need a few little gaps around the edges for the smoke to get around. And there's some gaps here and a couple on the side and the edges. And if it's tight up against there, there'll be no airflow. And we don't want that. Now, we're going to check the temperature. We let out a lot of the heat. So currently we're showing 173, but we were up in the 250 range. Now, the element has still been on constantly, and this is set at 275. On my last test, we topped out right around 290 for the smoker's maximum temperature. So I'm not sure if this smoker will go above 290, but we're going to go ahead and let it run and see what happens. One thing I noticed when I had that open was some of the drips that were landing directly on to the element were causing a flare-up. So you definitely want to avoid having flare-ups on the element and, you know, little mini fires. That's just never a good thing. That will create a little bit of smoke in there, but that's not really what we're going for. Next, one more thing that I forgot to mention is that I'm rendering the fat that I trimmed off. I took the pieces from the bottom that didn't have any seasoning on them, and I chopped those up and put them in the pan, and then I kind of wiped off some of the other seasoning that looked kind of, you know, too much, threw it in there, and added a little bit of pepper, and I have it sitting on the stove rendering on low heat right now. What we're going to use that for is we're going to use that for the basting liquid. Now we can add a little bit of seasoning, or even better, a little bit of barbecue sauce. Now we're going to go ahead and let this run until we get about 4 hours from now, and then we'll add in the temperature probes so that way we can track the inside of it. There's no reason to even consider worrying about tracking it at this point, and we can get an accurate reading after we get more than 2/3 of the way done. So that'll just be 1 second for you, about 4 hours for me. It's been slightly less than 4 hours, and we're going to go ahead and take a peek in here and see how it looks. So I want to note that I am having a little bit of trouble getting above 240 degrees cooking temperature. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this tray out. See how much oil is on there? It's not a lot. I'm going to curve the edges of this tray just a little bit. Try to create a little bit more gapping. See if that lets more heat through or not. Don't know. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull this one out. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some pork fat. Now I went ahead and rendered that fat there. And this is what I got. And I'm just going to go ahead and kind of glaze that. Put that on there. The bark is not well set, so I don't want to rub it around too much. I took a little bit of a wipe there, and it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. It needs to crisp up and dry out a little more. Okay, I'll go ahead and push this one back. Use this glove to grab that. This is my Cuisinart silicone hot glove. Works really nice, and it's also dishwasher safe. So I just toss that thing in the dishwasher and I don't even think about it. Oh, this crust on this one looks a little bit better. I can tell that we're nowhere near done here, so we don't really need to put in a thermometer or anything quite yet. I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea. Yeah, this one's almost set up here. Well, that looks nice. Set this to the side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this top one here, and I'm going to go ahead, move the stand off there, and then I'm going to slide it in here just like that. Looks like we're right in the middle and we completely cleared the bone. That is great news. Now the bottom one, go ahead and pull this back out. Center that back up a little bit. There we go. There we go. Go ahead and close this door. I did check the wood chips, and the wood chips are completely consumed. So I might actually throw in another pan of those. I'm going to turn this on, see where we're at. And I know you can't see this, but I'll hold it up here and see if you can get it on the close-up cam there. That's 118 degrees internal temperature. That's not too bad. I was hoping for a little higher than that, but that looks pretty good. We're moving right along. So we'll go ahead and just keep on doing what we're doing here, and I will keep on checking on it, and I'll let you know the time and the temperature. I do want to get the cooking temperature a little bit higher in here, and I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that, but I'll think about it and see if I can come up with an idea before the next scene. I'll see you in 1 second. Well, I've come back to check in with you one more time before we lose light here. Now, I did turn on the overhead light just enough so that way we would get a clear picture, I hope. And we're not going to have enough light to get a regular camera shot without extra lighting here real soon. So I thought we would take a look at it. And the way I'm feeling about it is we're about 2 hours behind my intended schedule. And mostly that's because we were cooking at 240 instead of 275 when I wanted to earlier. We were able to get the temperature up into the 260 range a minute ago, and then I checked on it, and after I let out a bunch of the heat, the temperature dropped back down. So right now we're showing 225, but the temperature is climbing right back up. But we're going to open it up and let out all the heat again. So here we go. I want you to get a quick look here. I'm not going to do anything other than show you. So you can see that really good in there, and this is hot, so I got to be careful with it. A lot of oil in the pan, and the thing is cooking right along. I'm going to go along, and I got to tell you that it does smell just amazing, the combination of the pork roast, and I believe it's the PS seasoning, because there's some smells that are not familiar to me with my regular seasoning. So we're going to just go ahead and keep rolling that along. I'm going to keep a real close eye on it for the next couple of hours, and we're going to hope that we get what we want out of it, and then that I can drop the temperature down to let it ride out overnight. I want to ride this out at a low enough temperature that when I wake up in the morning, it will be ready to pull. So I will adjust the temperature down to about 205 or 200 for a holding, depending on where we finish at bedtime. So I will see you in 1 second, but that'll be morning time for me. Good morning. So it's been a couple of hours past morning. I wanted to wait for the light to get up in the right angle and everything. And I thought that the temperature was a little lower than what I wanted to see first thing this morning. So I went ahead and bumped it from the holding temperature of 195 back up to 275. So that way it would continue to cook a little bit more. The one result of that is that the crust is a little dark. I'm going to go ahead and open this so you can get an idea of what we're looking at. I have pinched a couple of pieces off of the side, and I have to say that it was pretty tasty. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to verify the temperature with the lightning thermometer. I don't know if you can see that with the close-up cam, but it's showing 170. And this one is 100, and this one is 190, and this one is 170. So it looks like that this one is probe tender and done, and this one is not done. Well, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move forward and pull this one out, and we're going to deal with this one. Now, this is the PS seasoning one, and this is the one I really wanted to get an idea of what the taste was like. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we've got the pork here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the tray ready. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just pull the bone out and see how loose it actually is. And just like that, that shoulder bone came right out. Perfect, exactly what we expect to see. See how that looks? The neighbor's dogs are going to love this. This really is hot. But here's what we're going to do. This piece right here looks like a really good sample piece. Just the corner. It's going to have a lot of bark there. You can see. Look at that color. I'm going to break it open. And look at that. Nice and soft and juicy. Leave that right there. I'm going to go ahead and get a bite of this. That's really good. It's got a little bit of a spicy taste to it. When I do my homemade pork rubs, I always put a little bit of brown sugar, and garlic is my main profile to kind of give it a little bit of a sweetness. But this doesn't really have that. it just, like I said, it has a little tiny spice to it. And I tell you that for your benefit because it cannot be too spicy for me. I'm going to try a little bit more and see if I can nail it just a little bit. A little bit more of the crust there for this taste. Wow, that's really tasty. Like always, I probably should have used more seasoning. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start breaking this down as much as I can with these regular gloves. I can take a lot of heat, but maybe this might be too much. I'll see what I can do, and I'll be right back. So I'm just about done here processing this pulled pork, but I wanted to run through this with you really quick. Now, when you look at this piece here, this piece will fall apart, no problem. I just do that with my fingers. And then with this one here, the bark is a little bit firmer. So what I like to do is cut the bark off, set that to the side, check this. This is going to fall apart, no problem. Then I'll take my knife and I'll just hold it down and I'll pull on it. Set your knife down first, then pull. Set your knife down, then pull. You don't want to cut yourself, but by pushing the knife down, you'll be fine. And this gives you a nice flat surface to pull, just like that. Take your fingers, run it down the knife, away from the knife blade. Then I put this and pile this nice soft meat up in the middle. Then I'll take this crust and then I'll chop it. Now I'll take the crust, spread it around a little bit, and then we'll take and mix it all in together. The crust is where all the seasoning is, and we want that to be mixed throughout the batch. Gonna get this all in there, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of beef stock to it and cover it up and put it back in the smoker on low. You see now, there's a hard piece right there. We'll get that out of the way. Go across. And then chop. And all that yummy flavoring gets spread throughout the batch. By cutting this stuff up into small little pieces, it's easy to eat and it spreads out the seasoning. So let's go ahead and take another break there. So before I go away, I wanted to mention one more thing. And that is that I went ahead and separated out some of those pieces of fat that were just a little too big to chop up in there. And we're just going to throw those away or give them to the neighbor's dog, whatever works. But we're not going to serve that. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit of that beef broth and I'll wrap that with foil. And then we'll set that in the cooler until we're ready with the other one and we can lower the temperature and process that one. So for you, that'll just be 1 second, but for me, probably another hour. So we are back and it's been just slightly over an hour and we have a temperature of internal 185 degrees. I know you can't see that thermometer, but we're not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to put the instant read in there and see if you can see that on the main camera because I'm not moving the close-up camera. We'll do this. Oh, wow, it's nice and soft and 185 in the main location, but near the edges, it's even hotter, which I like to see. That makes it even softer there. About a 192 throughout is a really good temperature. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and see if I can transfer this like this. Just going to pull this right off of there. With these gloves, I can pull that probe out. I would not recommend you do that. I would recommend you use a pair of tongs or something like that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the temperature to a holding temperature so it will adjust. The other pan is sitting in the oven in the off position. I I literally had it at 275 and I'm just going to lower it to 175. It's easy. It's right in 5 degrees higher than what I would like to hold it at, but that's okay. It will be fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and show this to you real quick before I pull this out because I forgot to do that last time. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and flip this. Same thing, kind of work that out. I don't want to disturb too much of that crust if I can keep most of it. This one is a little bit different on the crust. It's a little kind of stickier. So that makes me think that I have more sugar in my mix than they have in theirs. I'm going to bust this apart just like that. And wow, we got there. Look at that. That is exactly what we wanted to see. That is perfect. Now, I'm going to kind of push this off of there. Not cutting it, I'm just removing it. So getting the knife in between the meat and the bone. Get all that meat off that bone and the bark. All right, now we're going to find a nice little piece to sample. And I kind of like right in this area here. That's kind of where we were on the other one. This is a little softer than the other one. I think we ended up bringing it up a little higher in temperature. I'm going to show you this. Take a look on the close-up cam there. Look at how nice that is. And this is smoking hot. Here we go. That's pretty good. Now right off, what I notice is my mixture doesn't have very much spice in it, just a little bit from the pepper. The PS seasoning has kind of more different spices. I think there was red pepper flakes and a few other things in there that would make a big difference. I want you to see, kind of get a look here. And I'm actually going to go ahead and take a cut. Not that you need to cut it, but not that you can cut it. It kind of falls apart, which is what we want with pulled pork. Look at that. Look at how moist that is in there. That is great. Now, we're going to go ahead and take a break, or at least you are, while I get this all pulled out. So that'll be for me. I think it takes about 10 minutes for me to do one of these, and that'll just be 1 second for you. So I've got this one all done, and you can see that I've mixed in the bark with the pulled meat. And again, you want to chop that bark up small enough that it goes well inside whatever you're serving it. We'll be serving it on buns, but I'm going to have another bite here. It's real good. Come down in temperature. So now, what I have here is some stock. What I usually do is I mix it half chicken and half beef, and I make sure that it's a little strong. I use powdered low sodium stock, and then I mix it up. This is 1.5 cups. I put 1.5 cups in the other one, but it's 2 cups worth of broth mix. By mixing beef and chicken together, it's kind of going to mask the flavor. Now, of course, you could always buy yourself some pork stock, and that'll be fine. Once you get it in there, give it a little bit of a mix. You don't need to mix it too much. It's going to go into the bottom, and that'll keep it moist while it's sitting and resting. Now I'm going to go ahead and take and put a piece of foil on there. See how close I got that? Usually I'm always way over, but not today. Oh, look at that. That's not too bad at all. Get that tight around the edges. Go down, and then because it's such a tight fit in the smoker, I'm just going to bend that a little bit. I'm going to go ahead, and the temperature has dropped in there. I'll go ahead and put that in here. Just like that for nice safekeeping. And I think I'm going to move this tray back up. And then I'm going to go get the other one out of the oven and put it in there so that way it'll stay warm. So that pretty much wraps it up. And I got to say that I really like that PS seasoning. And it's a little bit different than what I'm used to. Normally, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I do put in a little bit of sugar or something sweet to go with my pork. And that would be brown sugar most of the time. But this doesn't really have that profile. It's more of a spicy profile. Not strong at all, but it is there in the back. So I think that if you give this a try, you'll probably like it. If you're not sure about it, add a little brown sugar, and you can do that anytime during the cooking process. You don't have to do that at the beginning. Also, a little drizzle of honey on top of your pork will go super well and add a nice sweetness to it. So that right there is 2 pork butts in the Cuisinart COS-330. And while it took a little bit longer than what I was expecting, it certainly worked out and generated some really good food. So thanks for watching. If you saw anything you like in the video, there is affiliate links below. I will get compensated for those, but they won't cost you anything. Also, you're going to find articles for the actual cook itself, but you'll also find an article for pork rub seasoning mixes that I have tried and really like. My primary one is in that article. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.